posted cards because you do us a favor. Invite all of those with family ribbons to if they would come sit in the reserve section. Yeah, so because they're starting to take up all the seats for it. Yeah.
Okay, just invite those
With the family. Yeah. This color doesn't matter.
I'd like to invite all the family with a family ribbon to come and sit in the reserve section. You can do that now. Will the congregation please rise?
Brothers and sisters, friends and family, relatives, I feel truly blessed this day to be with you today. I'm Howard Quackenbush. I am Trent's oldest brother, and I've been asked by my folks to conduct today. First of all, we'd like to, of course, recognize Bishop Jeff Barnes from the Elk Ridge 10th Ward. He'll be presiding today. And we certainly want to thank the Elk Ridge 10th Ward for all the love and service and kindness that they've been showing us today, and for the Elk Ridge Utah Stake for allowing us to use their chapel today here. We're certainly grateful for that. We're truly blessed. As I was going, through the hallways and trying to be the eldest brother, and as oldest siblings, we got to organize. We got to get it done, right, Aunt Mary? But how blessed I feel to have such a wonderful family. I think at one time I counted up that I have nearly 60 first cousins, and that's well represented here with all the loved ones. We're here today, of course, to memorialize my baby brother Trent, Joseph Quackenbush. We're grateful for his life and for the love and kindness that he has touched probably everyone in this room, and we're thankful for him. We'd like to thank Sister Kathy Monson, my other favorite cousin. I got lots of favorite cousins, for providing the prelude music, and her sisters will be performing a musical number, and Cousin David later also. They'll be accompanied by Dwight Williams. We'll begin our services today by having an opening prayer by my brother Brett Quackenbush. Following Brett, we'll have the life sketch by Chris Quackenbush and my sister Tiffany Rigby. Following Chris and Tiffany, we'll have a musical number, Shall We Meet? It will be provided by my Quackenbush sister cousins, and they'll be accompanied by our neighbor across the street, Brother Dwight Williams, and we'll go to that point.
Our Father in heaven, we gather together today as friends and family, grateful for the love that we have for each other, giving thee thanks for the relationships and kindness and love that we share among each other. We gather together, Father in heaven, with sad hearts as we meet to ponder and reflect upon our sweet brother Trent. We ask thee, Father in heaven, that we might have a portion of thy Spirit to heal our hearts. May we remember the kindness and the goodness and the sweetness of our brother. Please watch over him. Please watch over us, strengthen us, and help us, we pray. In the name of Jesus Christ, amen.
So you're probably wondering why it's Tiff and me together, because we decided that neither of us would get through this individually, so we're going to tag team it, and where one of us starts to fall apart, the other is going to take over. Trent Quackenbush was born in Payson, Utah. He's the youngest of 9 children. And regarding his birth, I think it's best that Trent explain it himself. This was something he wrote in grade school. He wrote, "I was born in Mountain View Hospital on October 5th, 1983. My parents are Howard and Barbara Quackenbush. One of the funny things about my birth is that my dad had gone elk hunting with my brothers, and my mother was canning late at night when she went into labor. She had to drive herself to the hospital, and she told my brother Todd, who was 12 years old at the time, to take care of the other kids while she was gone. I was born early in the morning, but my dad didn't even know I was born until he arrived later that night." Trent was an Eagle Scout. Or should I say my mother was an Eagle Scout and Trent was the beneficiary of his Eagle Scout award. Growing up, Trent loved participating in Taekwondo with his father and his brothers. He was a first-degree black belt. He garnered awards in the Utah Summer Games, as well as several other martial arts tournaments.
In middle school, Hal Schuler, he's a teacher and neighbor of ours growing up, sent my parents a letter. Said, "Dear parents, a question that I am frequently asked is, why am I still teaching at my age? I guess the only good reason that I can give is that I love the opportunity to work with the middle school age students. Every day is not really enjoyable, and sometimes the challenges are really more than I want to have. However, as a whole, the rewards in teaching are enough to keep me doing it. During the first semester of this year, I had Trent as a student in my science class. I would like to let you know how much I appreciated having him as a student. He was always cooperative, well-behaved, and never a problem in my class. He's the type of student that can really get something out of school and at the same time help others to do the same." Trent was always well-liked and loved having fun with his friends, sometimes a little too much. Mom at the time was a middle school principal over the middle school, and the high school principal called Mom. And the phone call went like this: Barbara, what's your son doing burning down my school? Apparently, Hal Schuler, the same teacher prior, had donated an old automobile for a demolition activity for homecoming week. Well, Trent and his friends thought it was a good idea to throw some firecrackers in that car, and the car ended up catching fire, and it was parked right next to the high school, and it was just going up in flames. And Mom, I'm sure, was so embarrassed.
Trent graduated from Payson High School as a senior class president. In between his last year of high school and going off on his mission, I'm actually glad that this person is here today. Nathan Beard and I came home from our missions. We were living at the house with Trent. And this story tells a lot about Trent. Nate and I didn't have any clothes, as most return missionaries don't. But if you knew Trent, you knew Trent was a fantastic dresser, had great style, and he had, he had it all together. And so Beard and I used to go in and raid his closets for all of his clothes. We literally stripped his clothes, and in fact, I wear some of them even today. But we took his perfume or his cologne. We took everything, and it tells you about Trent. He never got cross with us. He never complained. He just went and bought himself more clothes, and he was happy to do it. That's my brother Trent. In late 2002, he served an LDS mission in Japan. He worked hard and he loved the people he taught. After his mission, he studied microbiology at BYU, and he met a young lady named Abby Clark. They were later married and later separated. She wrote a very special note to our family, and we really appreciate you. Thank you, Abby.
For summer employment while in college, Trent worked for Holland America's cruise lines in Southeast Alaska as a motor coach driver and tour guide. But summer employment transitioned into full-time employment as he took a position as a new employee trainer. Now, working with a lot of the cruise lines, and a lot of the ships would port in Alaska, and then, and many of my brothers did this too, would then take passengers inland and go on land tours through Alaska and Canada. Well, Trent eventually became where he was over trying to recruit a lot of those college students. So my family was lucky to have Trent with us in late winter and early spring for a few years as he was gathering college students. And they got to know their uncle really well. And as I was reading through posts, and thank you everybody for reaching out to our family. As I was reading through posts, I saw one that described it so well. It says Trent was the funkle, the fun uncle. He found ways to connect with each of my kids, whether it was playing Legos with them, watching anime, gaming, lifting weights, talking about what was happening in their lives. He made connections, and it turned into relationships that they cherish forever.
Trent's work ethic and people skills allowed him to rise through the ranks at Holland America's sister company at Princess Cruise Lines. He eventually became the director of safety for them, I believe in the Southeast Alaska area. Trent eventually pursued a career in law, establishing a co-owned law firm with his brother Blake. Several, actually 3. The brothers had 3 firms located in Austin, Vancouver, and Anchorage. Their success can be attributed, at least in part, to the fact that the boys complement each other's personalities. They're not only business partners, but friends above all. While in Colombia with friends, he met Brenda Garzon, who eventually became his fiancée. Many people here today in the audience probably participated in hobbies that Trent enjoyed and he was very fond of. He loved to travel the world, go to concerts and festivals, Lake Powell, sporting events, weightlifting, boating, wake surfing, and gaming, to name a few things.
Trent had a magnetic personality. People were naturally drawn to him, not only because he was charismatic and good looking, but especially because he was a genuine person. He made people feel accepted as they were, with no judgment. He was so good at seeking out a person that didn't feel comfortable in the room and making them feel at ease. Trent connected with others on a personal level that left others making a new friend in him. I love my brother. Grateful for the example that he is to me and my family. I'm going to try to be more genuine in my actions, like he was with others. He really is the best of us. Miss Trent so much already. But I believe there's something after this life. I believe that I'm going to see him again. So for me, it's not goodbye forever. It's until we meet again. I love you, brother.
I got to take a deep breath before I start this section. We're the first, and then Blake and Kurt and some others follow. You guys are in real trouble. Thinking back, I can't remember a time when I ever heard Trent say anything disparaging about another person. I've never seen him get angry with somebody. He was generous to a fault and had a huge heart. When I think about Trent's qualities, I'm reminded of the attributes noted by the Lord in section 4 of the Doctrine and Covenants. Verse 6, it says, remember faith, virtue, knowledge, temperance, patience, brotherly love, kindness, godliness, charity, humility, and diligence. There are very few qualities I just listed in this verse that my younger brother did not possess. Anyone that has ever met Trent has taken note of his incredible smile. It was a Cheshire cat kind of smile. It drew you in and made you feel at ease, but at times there was a bit of mischief behind it. We all know that, right? The world lost somebody truly special in my brother. I'm going to miss him immensely. Please know that I love you, Trent. And I will see you again.
Shall we meet beyond the river, where the surges cease to roll, where in all the bright forever sorrow ne'er shall press the soul? Shall we meet, oh shall we meet? Shall we meet beyond the shore? Shall we meet beyond that river, where the surges cease to roll? Shall we meet in that vast harbor when a stormy voyage is o'er? Shall we meet and cast the anchor by the fair and peaceful shore? Shall we meet, or shall we meet? Shall we meet beyond the shore? Shall we meet beyond the river where the surges cease to roll? Shall we meet with Christ our Savior when He comes to claim His own? Shall we know His blessed solace and sit down upon His throne? Shall we meet, oh shall we meet? Shall we meet beyond the shore? Shall we meet beyond the river where the surges cease to roll? When we meet beyond the river where the surges cease to roll.
Thank you, Brother Williams, and thank you, my dear cousins. Brothers and sisters, we'll continue first by hearing from Seth Redford, Trent's first cousin and dear associate. He'll then be followed by Blake Quackenbush, then Devin Quackenbush, then Kurt Quackenbush, and then Brett Quackenbush. We'll go to that point, Brother Seth.
I didn't think this day would come for a long time. When I first met Trent, it was because Blake and Trent both offered me a job to come up to Alaska and work with them. And, he was my cousin, but I mean, we hadn't really seen or connected in years. Like, we didn't really know each other. And he opened up his house to me and said, "You can stay as long as you need." And I began to really develop a relationship with Trent. I lived with him, worked with him. We go to the gym together, talk about, Japan. I started my mission in Korea. We just had so many things that just started to line up. He was very different from me, but so alike in the same way. And living with him and seeing him just about every day for the last 3 years. He took a spot as a big brother for me, and I could feel that was reciprocated, because I know that he was the youngest in his family, and I felt like his younger brother, and we just like watched out for each other in that way. And I have countless stories. I mean, we still have had plans to do a lot of things together, but I know there's a lot of experiences, a lot of connections, a lot of acts of service that I can still do with him and for him. An old cowboy once said, when he was trying to comfort a lady who had just lost her husband, he said, when you love somebody, a friend, a relative, or a partner, you trade souls with them. They get a piece of yours and you get a piece of theirs. And when your love dies, a piece of you dies, but a piece of them still lives inside you. I feel that every day. I've felt that every day for the last week. I've cried every day. Sometimes a lot, sometimes a little, but I know he's still present. Like, I feel him. And I know from speaking to a lot of you too, that you still feel his presence too. The flowers that will spring from such a tragedy will carry his spirit on through eternity. Because Trent was a legend, and legends never die. I love you all. Please reach out if you want to talk about anything.
My name's Blake Quackenbush, and I'm an alcoholic. Trust me, Trent would expect nothing less from me on a day like today. Trent's the youngest child in our family, and I'm the second youngest. I'm 41 years old, and I truly believe that Trent and I have seen and done so much in that short amount of time that it's as if we've both lived 10 different lives, 10 different lifetimes. Trent and I, we've learned a lot of lessons, and really, I can't go further talking about him without first recognizing my parents, my wonderful mom, my great dad. Ooh, Chris, you were right. Growing up, my parents were amazing. Imagine my mother, 9 children, 8 boys, 1 girl, no teen pregnancy, no drug addiction. We had a childhood filled with joy. My parents' efforts set the stage for us to become 2 doctors, a pediatric dentist, a math professor, 5 legal professionals, and business owners. Most of us were Eagle Scouts, and all the boys in our family served LDS missions. All of the boys are bilingual. Howard and Chris and I speak Spanish. Brett speaks Korean. Todd and Trent speak Japanese. Devin and Kurt speak Portuguese. My parents nailed it. They gave us all the tools we needed to succeed and be successful at an early age. Trent would not be the person you love without my parents. Second only to my parents, I credit Trent with being the most influential person in my life. He taught me how to find joy in this crazy world. And Trent was influential to me because he seared into my cerebellum 4 things. And this is where my talk is not going to be very conventional. He taught me about peace, love, unity, respect. I'll start with peace. Trent was the peacemaker. He's always been non-confrontational, very low drama, totally opposite of me. I'm high-strung, and I'll be fair, I love me a healthy dose of drama. As children, Trent would get scolded by my mother, and if you know Trent, he would ride up to my mom, and he would put his arms around her, and he'd throw his head back and ha ha ha. Oh, Mom. Trent's laugh could soothe any mother's fury. And when we were younger, my mom used to spank us, and our weapon of choice was a fly swatter. And one time, Trent and I were misbehaving in the kitchen, so my mom grabbed me first, and she pow-powed me on my little booty, and I cried. And then Trent was next, but when she spanked Trent with that swatter, he just threw his head back and laughed. And that just made my mom even madder. So she just started spanking him even more. Next thing I know, Trent's running around the kitchen with my mom hot on his heels. He's laughing. She's mad as a stepped-on hornet. But then my mom started to laugh. Trent had defused the bomb. Everybody was laughing. I was crying. I'm laughing. I don't know what I'm feeling. Trent taught me how to find peace. At our law offices, I would sometimes encounter a problem that would cause my blood to boil. And Trent would always first catch on to my feelings, and then he would instantly call Seth, immediately call Katie, and he would say to them almost exactly these words: "We need to jump on a call with Blake because he's gone DEFCON 5. Trent was always the good guy. He always talked me off the ledge. He used his ability as a peacemaker to resolve cases in our clients' favors. In client meetings, mediations, settlement conferences, Trent devised a system in which he would be good cop and I was bad cop. So for example, I'd start out telling opposing counsel and pro se litigants on the other side how utterly awful their lives would be if they faced off with us in court. And I would go into great hellfire and brimstone detail with them. And then Trent would just go in with that Cheshire cat smile of his, and he'd kindly remind them how attractive non-confrontational settlement would be. Because of Trent, our offices on average reach settlements in litigation about 94 to 96% of the time. That's how good Trent was. Trent taught his good cop method to our employees to the point that the good cop, bad cop roles are now standard practice at our firms. Love. Trent loves everyone. Everyone loves Trent. Look around you. Look how many there are of you. Participating today in Payson, Utah, are individuals from Spain, Korea, we have Africa, Japan, Netherlands, Italy, Honduras, Alaska, Missouri, New York, and more far-reaching places than that. That's also with everybody online as well. My family doesn't even live in Payson. None of us do. We haven't lived here for 10 years. But it's my wish for all of you that when you die, that you get such a great outpouring of love like Trent did, or has. So how did Trent do it? How did he show love to you, and why are you here? To my parents, my brothers, my sister, to me, Trent told us often and regularly that he loved us. He actually said those words, "I love you." He said them often, and we knew it without question that he loved us. And I hope you do too. Dane Skinner, Trent's childhood friend, wrote about Trent this. He said, quote, "I remember Trent came up to me on the first day of junior high and said to me, We're going to be good friends. And that was it. He brought me into his group, and we were friends from that point forward. I remember he was always laughing. Half the time, it seems he couldn't even get through his stories because he was laughing too hard at his own storytelling, and that made him even funnier than the actual story that he was trying to tell. I remember a bunch of times being asleep in my apartment in Salt Lake, and I'd hear a knock at my window. I'd then hear Trent's voice, "Skinbone, we're going out." And without question, I'd get up because Trent could always make it a good night of fun. And I'll never forget him teaching me how to delete my web browser search history. And the fun times that led up to that. Ha 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 ha. End quote. Trent showed me by example what love is, how to accept love, and how to communicate love. He broke me in by teaching me how to say I love you to complete strangers. I have to explain it. It's going to be complicated and a little drawn out, so bear with me. In September 2021, after one of my many bad breakups, and there were a few, I was living in Anchorage, Alaska, sulking, feeling hopeless, and I didn't want to go back into the dating meat market and start all over. Trent called me on a Wednesday, knowing that I was sad, and he said, "You know what you need, Blake? You need a rave, and there's one this weekend in Washington." He said, "I'm buying you a ticket. You're flying to Seattle, so go right now to the Halloween store. You need to buy 3 adult onesie-footed pajamas, 1 for each day of the festival, and then get to the airport in 6 hours, and I'll see you when you land." I thought to myself, well, it really can't get any worse. So I grabbed Eli Waugh, and we got our costumes. He was Grouch for the first day, and I was Tickle Me Elmo. We looked ridiculous. They should have called me Tickle Me Doofus. At the rave, Chelsea Kruger, who's here in the audience with us, she taught me how to make my first beaded rave bracelet called a candy. But it was Trent who actually showed me how to trade it. So side note, I have no idea why they call them candies. They're basically beaded rave bracelets that you can make with beads and an elastic band from Joanne Fabrics. You just go there and it's there. On the beads are letters that you can string together and spell out words. And so they'll spell out all sorts of things. There's a lot of people in the audience wearing these, and you'll see them on their wrists. Most of them say "Love Trent." Written in the beads of my first rave bracelet were the words "Blake's first candy." I don't know why that makes me sad. I traded it with Trent. So how do you trade a candy? I'm glad you asked. I'm now going to teach you one of the stupidest, yet the most profound life-changing things, and this is true, that I learned from Trent. To trade a candy bracelet at a rave, you do a handshake and then exchange the bracelets. But this is not a secret combination as described in the Book of Mormon. It's not. But it goes like this. You first find somebody, anyone, regardless of race, class, gender, or anything, and you hold out a peace sign to them just like this. And hopefully I haven't embarrassed my mom a lot or too much, but I'm going to embarrass her a little bit more. So can I have you come up here, Mom? Just real quick. Yeah, it's a funeral. We do this all the time. Trent and I have been embarrassing my mom since we were born. But she did this to us. So, Mom, if you could come stand here. So I'm going to teach you how. So you're going to hold out 2 fingers like this. And you do 2 fingers. Peace. And you go like this, and you make half a heart. Half a heart, and another half of a heart. That's love. And then you do unity. And then you do respect. And at that point, you're pretty tied up. She can't really get loose. And so that's when you trade a bracelet with her.
Well, thanks.
Thanks, Mom. You can go sit down now. No, now if she had a bracelet, she would trade that with me. This is what Trent taught me in my onesie pajamas down in Washington when I was having the worst month of my life. The acronym for what I just did is called PLUR: peace, love, unity, respect. Trent did this to me, and I'll never forget how pleased he was to show me how. He had that little Trent smirk. He loved being my big brother and teaching me things. After giving my first candy, he loaded up my arms with like 5 or 6 of these bracelets. He put them on my wrist, and then we were off to go see our first DJ. Look, at that point, I'd never seen a rave or candies. And frankly, Quackenbushes aren't like overly physical, affectionate people, especially not to complete strangers. So I was understandably super nervous about going out into this crowd in front of a DJ and trading candies. But when I entered the venue, I saw a massive stage with lights, lasers, a DJ facing a crowd of 50,000 people, and everyone was dressed like lunatics. Weirdly, everyone in the crowd was smiling. They were super happy, and they were all very kind. And as I walked through the crowd behind Trent, everyone kept complimenting me on my ridiculous outfit. They thought it was the grandest thing on earth. I mean, complete randos would pat me on the back as I would awkwardly dance in a conga line right behind Trent out to the center of this crowd. It was so dumb. Did I do what Trent told me to do and trade my first candy? Barely. I went out to a girl, held out my peace fingers, but then I forgot what plur even meant and just sat there touching her 2 fingers, not knowing how to get this thing off my wrist. And luckily, Trent jumped in, guided me through the exchange, and success. I plurred someone. No idea who, a random stranger, and I remember Trent was laughing so hard at how ridiculous it all went down. And I was dying from a million emotions. Here I was single, I was 38, I was dumped, dressed like a crazy person, and literally stressing about how I had incorrectly plurred some 20-something-year-old girl with a Joanne Fabrics bracelet inscribed with the words "hot tamale." Trent, you did this to me. Look, I know how to maintain composure as a lawyer. I've done it in front of the Supreme Court, but here I was sweating bullets at a rave. But Trent was laughing in his big Trent laugh, laughing with his head all the way back, and his laugh was so contagious, it made me laugh. And as for that 20-something age girl, well, she plurred me a bracelet with beads that read, "Love ya," which was frankly exactly what I needed to hear. She hugged me for no reason at all, told me I was cute. I wasn't, I promise. And then she turned away and went back to dancing to that horrible electronic music that had no words. Raves are dumb. They're dumb. And I have no way to explain to you why, but at the moment, for the first time in years, I felt peace, I felt love, I felt unified with a random 20-something-year-old, and I felt respected by all these lunatics. I felt plur. I felt plur from Trent. It was so dumb, and yet it was awesome. In fact, it was at that moment that I yelled out to Trent, because the DJ was so loud, "This is awesome!" Long story short, the night ended with me trading every single candy that Trent had originally given me, and it gets worse. Not only did it give away all my bracelets, but I went back to Trent and asked him for his bracelets, and then I gave away all of his, and Trent reminded me that you're supposed to exchange the bracelets so that you don't run out. But my cup was so full. It was overflowing with joy. I wanted to give joy to everybody, just like that random person had made me feel. And in my life, I've done so many cool things. We've traveled countless countries. We've seen all the sights, we've done all the things. But to date, one of the happiest memories I have in my whole life is me on night number 2 of that stupid rave in Washington, not walking, but skipping through a crowd with Eli on our way to Trent, who we could see off in the distance. And there I was dressed as Tigger from Winnie the Pooh. Candy trading, hugging random people, and yelling at the top of my lungs, This is awesome. Raves are dumb, but sharing a well-lived life with Trent is awesome. Fast forward 1 year, February 5th, 2023, my life was so happy, my cup was so full and overflowing because of all the peace, love, unity, and respect I'd felt from Trent, from my friends, my family, not from raves. And I remember reflecting on how happy my life had become because of him. And one night, we have a boys' chat where we text each other, and there's a lot of us. I texted the group, and I wrote this quote, "I love you, Trenton." His name's not Trenton, but we call him that because every time Eli gets drunk, that's what he calls him. Trenton. I love you, Trenton. I love you so much. I've never experienced more joy and lived such a full life, so pure and so freaking cool. And to my boys, I love you all so much. I am so happy. Let everyone ever be jealous of how freaking cool this life is with you. This is awesome. This is awesome. This is freaking awesome. End quote. Fun fact about Trent. His username on social media profiles is Pappy T. Why? Because he was like everybody's dad at parties, events, festivals. Sometimes he was our rave daddy. Trent taught us how to love and receive love. He was so influential in our friend group that we actually adopted the tradition of telling each other that we love, I love you, man, before ending phone calls and conversations. So just imagine, we're heterosexual grown men, and we say, I love you to each other. And then they say it back to us. And we don't feel weird about it. I have a beard, for Pete's sake. This was a very revolutionary thing. Unity. I asked Eli Waugh and Marshall Pickering, two of Trent's closest friends, what they remember most about Trent. Their response was unity. Trent brought everyone together, whether it was on a boat, at a family reunion, at a game night of Magic, at a party at the Big Lake Boathouse, or simply just a couple of dudes watching Bachelor with Trent's dog Archibald. I met a man last night named Travis Eric, a guy from Victoria, Canada, at Devon's house, and he told me that he'd been hanging out with Trent for 11 years. How did they meet? Well, Trent saw Travis struggling with a generator he was trying to start, and he offered to help. But the next thing you know, Trent's inviting this person he doesn't even know to everything. Anytime Trent was in Washington, he was sending an invite to Travis. So Travis would get a text message that would read something to the effect of, 7 Lions is playing tonight. I'm buying you a ticket and you're not paying me back. It's classic Trent. My sister Tiffany remembers how Trent always made sure, and she said this while she was up here, that Trent always made sure to connect with all the grandchildren. He made the rounds. I love all the grandchildren in our family, but I don't know all of their names, and that makes me feel bad. But Trent does. But my favorite grandchildren, you know who you are. Respect. Respect. Trent is so respectful to people that of our 103 employees, some of whom we either fired or they quit, of those, literally none of them hate Trent. I can't say the same for me. But none of them hate Trent. We actually have an attorney here, Mark Chiklow and Chelsea Kruger from their law office. They're actually a competing law office. They compete very directly with us, and they're feisty. And you'd think they wouldn't like us. But they flew all the way from Alaska to be here for this moment. That's the kind of person Trent is. Trent was the good cop. He was a friend, a true friend to everybody. He could disagree on issues, but do in a way that never left anyone hating him. And it's true that while Trent respected others, he had some trouble following socially acceptable rules. Jeremy Meek, one of Trent's childhood friends, writes, he was actually referred to as Chunk, so it's hard for me to refer to him as Jeremy, but Chunk wrote, quote, All of the high school buddies made a WhatsApp group where we were sharing photos and stories about Trent. And the most common memory we all have of Trent is how no matter what bathroom he'd go into and no matter who was in there, he'd walk up to the urinal and drop his pants and underwear to his ankles and urinate like that. It was incredibly funny every time. End quote. Trent also didn't respect authority, as his childhood friend Tyler Haskell explains when Tyler wrote, quote, "Trent and I were inseparable for 20 years of our lives. There are thousands of memories I have with my best friend. Most of them make me laugh or cry, and a lot of them make me wonder how we didn't end up in jail." Speaking of jail, there is one experience that I will always cherish. One day after school, during our sophomore year, we'd gotten a ride home. There just so happened to be an airsoft gun in the back seat of the vehicle, and as we drove, we saw Jordan Riley walking alongside the car, and it was only natural to point the airsoft gun at him and make him freak out, which he did. Apparently, any kind of gun at school property is not good. So luckily, we didn't end up in jail, but we were both expelled from school. Tyler goes on to write, "I'm no school administrator, but whoever thought of expelling two best friends from school as a punishment was sorely mistaken. We had the time of our lives." Trent had a driver's license, and so we took Trent's car, referred to as the Costanza, everywhere. Once the snow started flying, we went snowboarding every single day. We almost became professional snowboarders thanks to that incident. Thankfully, Barbara, Trent's mom, was able to get our punishment down to 3 months. We played all day, and then Tiffany, Trent's sister, would tutor us for a couple hours each week, and we were able to pass all of our classes. That will always be the most treasured time I got to spend with Trent. Thank you, Quackenbush family, for all your love over the years, and thank you, Trucho, Trent's Spanish name that I always call him, for being the best friend I could ask for. I love you, and I will cherish all the memories until the day I see you again. God works in mysterious ways. Many of you may not know this, but my brother Devin, Trent, and I went to a show in Las Vegas the weekend before Trent passed away. Trent and Devin carpooled from Salt Lake to Las Vegas, but they stopped by my mom's house in St. George on the way, and they stayed the night. Trent stayed up late talking to my mom. He got to hug her with his big arms and tell her how much he loved her before continuing on to Las Vegas. That's now a very special moment for my mother. Time is priceless. During the show in Las Vegas, I vividly remember Trent putting his big arm around me and then his other big arm around Devin. And he told me and Devin how much he loved us. And later that night, after my cup was full, I said to Trent that all this goodness in my life was because of him. I pointed to Eli, and I pointed to Paul, and some guy I had just met, and other guys I had just met, and all these degenerate friends having a good time. And I told Trent, none of us would be here without you. Of course, Trent laughed with his head all the way back, like he always did. And he tried to credit Noah and Amanda for everything, claiming that they taught him about bass music and how to dance to EDM and what, in fairness, I mean, frankly, they did. They just did. But Trent didn't understand what I was saying, so I clarified. I reminded him that as a kid, he and I shared a bicycle. I don't know if it was a money thing or what, but my mom bought me a bicycle in July for my birthday. And then Trent's birthday was in October. And that was his birthday present, the bike I got in July. We shared that. So when I would drive, Trent would sit on the handlebars, and he was kind of a big kid, so it was really hard. But when he would drive, I would stand back on the little tiny pegs. We couldn't afford those big ones like they had. When we would go over to Andrew Christofferson's house or over to Tyler Haskell's house. Trent and I shot our first deer, or deers. I don't know what the plural of deer is. Maybe it is just deer. We shot our first deer together by ourselves on the same day. My dad was showing the grandkids how to shoot deer, and then Trent and I were just planning on getting nothing, and then two just came along and we shot them. And then we didn't know what to do with them because they were dead, but apparently you have to like gut them and stuff. My oldest brother Howard walked up onto that murder scene, and yeah. Thankfully he like solved the problem. But during that moment at the concert, I also reminded Trent that I fell in love with Eva, my beautiful, awesome wife. At an event Trent invited us to. It was that event where I first kissed Eva on the nose. I told him I wouldn't have a beautiful little girl without him. And then I also reminded him that we've always been business partners, equal in everything. He was my good cop. And that in less than 10 years, we built 3 law firms in 3 different states out of thin air. Do you know what he did after I finished telling him all of this? He did what he always did. He just laughed with his head all the way back in his quintessential Trent laugh. And then he said, "I love you too, man." And just left it at that. Thankfully, at that point, Devin came over and he pulled both of us in and we stuck our heads together. We held each other for a long time. It's funny because we didn't know that. We didn't know any of this was going to happen. And shortly after that moment, we took a photo, and it's on my Facebook and Instagram, of the 3 of us standing together. It was just seconds after that moment we had together. It was the best weekend ever. It was awesome. I love you, Trent. Trenton. I love you so much. And I'm grateful you taught me how to love life. For all of you here, this moment sucks. I lost my best man, my partner, my little big brother, my most trusted friend. This life we have is so ridiculously cool, especially when you have somebody amazing to share it with. When you fondly think about Trent from this moment forward, always remember what Trent taught us.
How do you follow that? So I had a fairly lengthy speech all prepared, and I had practiced it, and I was ready to go. And then I got a text this morning from Mom that said, "I want you all to be respectful of the tone and seriousness of..." So I had to pare my speech down quite a bit. Doesn't seem like Blake cared. Trent was something else. There was no one like him. There was no one like him. He had an uncanny way of making you feel very unique and special. Like you were, whenever you were around him, you were the most important person in the world. He made you feel that way. He made me feel that way all the time. That's why I loved spending time with him. I always, whenever there was anything that was being planned, the assumption was that Trent was going to be there. So the plan would be made, and then Trent would be called, and this is what we're doing. He'd be like, every single time, "I'm down." Last night we had a kind of a little informal memorial for Trent, and people were telling stories, and it was mentioned a few times after that by several people independently that, the stories were all different, but really they were all the same because there was a common theme about Trent. And so I'm going to put that hypothesis to the test. And what I'd like you to do, we'll do a little interactive exercise here right now. And I'd like you, if you have your phone or if you got a piece of paper and a pen or whatever, I'd like you to think of a story about Trent, a story where you had some sort of interaction with him, something that stands out in your mind. And then write one word, either on your phone or on a piece of paper or whatever, to remember that interaction with Trent. So take about 20 seconds. Go ahead and do it. Jeopardy music is playing in the background. Think of something that was an interaction with Trent that was unique to you, that that stands out in your mind. There are a million of them in my mind. So now you should have a word or something reminding you of that specific interaction. Now I'll tell you a story about Trent, a memory. This was about, 10 years ago-ish. It's funny. It's going to be similar to Blake's experience. I had just been dumped by a romantic interest. I just opened my law firm. I was working out of what was not much more than a broom closet in a WeWork-esque type of building, where I was the lawyer, the paralegal, the receptionist, the janitor, and also the cockroach. I was all the things, and I was stressed out of my gourd. In that moment, I think anyone who's ever opened a business and took that jump has got that feeling of the what if I fail. And I was just absolutely out of my mind, stressed. I was sad because of the relationship breakup, and I was out. I didn't have any money. I was just, I was in that headspace. And Trent had an uncanny ability to know whenever I needed him. He calls me up just out of the blue one morning. It was about 10 a.m. He was living in Seattle at the time, and he calls me up out of the blue and says, talks to me, and I unload. I tell him all of the why the sky's falling, and all the reasons why my life is this or that, whatever. And he just listened patiently, and gave me some advice here and there, and then at the end of the phone call, I felt so much better, and went about my day. And it was approaching 5:00 when the front part of the office, because this was a shared workspace, so the receptionist, who was the receptionist for everybody in the building, was about to leave, but she gave me a ring to my phone and said, "Hey," and she was talking in a hushed tone, which was very strange because this is supposed to be the receptionist just telling me what's going on. And she says, "There's a very tall, handsome man up front, and he wants to speak to you." And I didn't have any clue who this might be because, who do I know that's tall, handsome, and wants to speak to me? So I tentatively walked up front, and I think all of you have seen this. I'm going to try to impersonate him, but Trent standing with his back toward me with his phone, because he's always on his phone. And then he did this. Blake already brought up the name Poppy T. I call that the Poppy T smile. He tilts his head a little bit, looks at you with his eyebrows raised, with a smile, and sometimes he'll give you a little Devin. He then announced to the anyone who could hear that I was too stressed out and they were all ruining my life. And that he was taking me and I was going with them just no matter what they said. I don't think anyone would object. But Trent made the announcement. He said a few other choice words, but given Mom's text, I'm not going to repeat them. We went out to a classy little cocktail lounge called ABG's in Provo. Some of you know. You're more likely to get pink eye than anything else from ABG's. We had a couple of drinks and we were talking and Trent, I mean, he flew. Just because I was having a bad day, he dropped everything, took the day off, flew from Seattle to Salt Lake, came down to Orem, spent the whole afternoon and evening with me, stayed at my place, and then left in the morning back to Seattle. That's just who Trent was. Trent would always show up in the best way. Now, I think in my mind the best word to describe Trent is kindness. I don't think anyone can think of a negative thing to say about him because he was kind to everyone and anyone. It didn't matter if somebody was upset with him or mad at him, Trent was kind to that person. And obviously that would usually disarm the person. The next thing you know, they're, sharing hugs and telling each other they love each other. Now, I want you to go back and look at your phones or your pieces of paper or whatever, and find that word to remember the story that you have with Trent. Now, hearkening back to last night, all the stories are different, but really they're all kind of the same. Trent loved unconditionally. He was kind unconditionally. And every single story that you can think of him, that all comes from the same place. All of us have so many adventures with him. And I say adventure because anytime you were with Trent, it was a good time. It was always a good time. Trent's now off. He was the first one, it didn't matter what it was. He was the first one to do it. And then he would tell you about it and say, okay, next time you got to come with me. And you did, and you had the best time ever. And he would go do something else with somebody else. And he would say, oh, Deb, I'm telling you, you got to meet me here, or we got to go here, or let's go check this out. He was always the one to dive in head first. And now he is off on the last great adventure, exploring it first. ready to tell us how great it is and how he's found peace and serenity. I hope he found peace. If there were, in the Webster's dictionary, under kindness, you'll find right next to the definition, a picture of Trent with his phone doing the Poppy T smile. I miss you, Trent. I love you. Oh, that's right. My brother and friend Paul Murdoch is going to say a couple of words. He shared them with me, and I asked the family if it would be all right if he shared them with everyone else, and I think we'd appreciate it if you did.
I think every funeral should have a surprise, crazy cousin, family member that talks. And I feel lucky that I get to be this guy. My name is Paul. I know actually many of you. I first met the Quackenbushes 21 years ago. And I met Devin, Chris, and Nate Beard in training to become tour guides in Alaska. And I'll be honest with you, I didn't like them. And I love Chris to death, but Chris at 21, 22 on a boring Saturday afternoon sometimes has a time limit to him. And that expired sometimes. But before you knew it, we were all in Alaska, and Nate Beard was knocking at my door at 1 a.m, basically saying, "Can I sleep with you?" And like Trent would have, okay. And I have loved the Quackenbushes ever since. And I have loved the family, and they embraced me. And I'm going to not be emotional for a minute because I'm going to keep it light, but the best things in my life have come from that. And sorry. People don't know, but I married into the family because Devin introduced me to my partner at that time. And I have my kids, and the Quackenbushes and the Beards and the Redfords have loved me and my children. And I feel like an honor to share the love in return. Mostly as a friend. I feel like I get to be one of these friends, brothers, in place of several others here that just get to share a tribute to Trent in different words, maybe, along the same theme. And I like to process things through writing. I don't know if anyone else does that. I might just kind of be weird. But before I say it, though, I have observed the Quackenbushes for 20 years as someone involved in their lives. And I, for the last 3 or 4 years, all the great adventures that I've undertaken in my life included Devin and Trent. And I have loved them as a brother. And I've watched Devin and Trent have this beautiful brotherly love, and Blake and the rest of them. And it has been just something to behold. And the respect and love that I've watched them share has just been a beautiful thing. So I'm just this is Ray family. I'm a cousin. I'm not a cousin. I'm an ex-cousin, friend, brother. And I'm just gonna read what I wrote, and then I'll be done. Some losses and struggles have forced me to confront my own inner life, to edit and re-edit my reactions to the world, and to reflect on what the gifts, meaning, and suffering life has given to me. And I feel like this is one of those moments, one that makes me remake the emotional mixture of things inside. I feel like the universe has a way of doing this consistently to us. It forces us to surrender to emotions and circumstances of different shapes and intensity. And it's forced me to surrender to to the universe's timeline and its will. And the difficult part is the universe often offers no explanations or comfort. Despite this, we come across rare people who, through their own gravity and presence, shake us out of our own aloneness. They move us to a place of love and connectivity and community, and their presence is their power. The first person I knew with this power was actually my grandmother. She never missed a chance to break you down with love, and she had a unique capacity to make me feel like really royalty. I never left feeling like my mere presence didn't make her life more beautiful. Like my grandmother, Trent also had a magical way of changing me. The first time I really felt this was in Colombia. I flew in, we met up, and we ate filthy burritos. And Trent really didn't say much, and we were still comfortable. I watched his quiet inquisitiveness and observant nature, and that was Trent. On that trip, we often stayed out to the wee hours of the morning. We danced and talked. One evening, well, more like 2, 3 in the morning, Trent befriended a family, parents, cousins, siblings, and a woman named Brenda. He didn't even really speak Spanish. I left around 3 or 4 in the morning. Trent stayed with the family. That was Trent. That is how he met so many of us, strangers drawn to him, strangers that were already new friends. Trent offered a quiet gentleness that couldn't be resisted. Your emotional guard was imperceptibly and almost immediately just rendered moot. He smiled, and his presence immediately made me feel welcome. Sometimes he would also smile at me, and he had a saying, and he said this to many people, but he would look at you and say, "Pablo, it's time." And then, well, you did things you shouldn't do. And this happened often, and I wasn't alone in this. This rare gift wasn't outwardly obvious, but obvious to me as I watched him. There was something I felt around him. Sometimes you couldn't quite place your finger on it, and sometimes from the only the briefest of encounters. And that was Trent. Trent was often quiet and even shy, not one to overly share his emotional world. When he did so, he talked with tenderness. Really, Trent's magic wasn't the result of charming words or outgoing acts or even like contagious energy, but merely his presence and innate ability to somehow draw me to him and his community to him. And that was Trent. Trent was also one to give to me. Actually, he always gave. He would pick the worst bed to sleep in, and he would hit the sunrise set with you only because he knew it made you happy. I felt drawn to him. I felt it easy to love him. I could be more fully me around him. He never judged my dancing, and if you've seen me dance to EDM, that's a tall order. And he never corrected me. He asked thoughtful questions, and he never told me to be anything different than who I am. And that is why I love Trent. And that is why I loved him. And that's why we loved him, because he loved me just as I am, without any expectation. And that never changed. As Mother Teresa once said, for love to be true, it must hurt. My pain feels like a testament or proof that I love Trent, that Trent loved us, and that he was loved by us. Proof of what he meant to me and that he meant so much to so many, that his presence mattered. To feel the pain is to honor Trent, to honor the man who allowed you just to be you. This is the ultimate gift I feel that Trent gave me. This, Trent, is a letter of love to you, my friend. And a forever thank you. Expressed through my pain and my honor, and the collective heartache of all who loved you and honor you, and by all who you truly accepted.
It's hard being last because everybody uses all your material. Now, I have to start off by saying, and I say this at work around people who are very much their professionals, I'm just a nerd. So I begin with a quote from Thanos. And Thanos said, "This day extracts a heavy toll." Thanks, Chris. You're killing me on this. We're all here with a heavy heart. Celebrate Trent's life. Trent has a subtle but very real and profound effect on each and every single one of us. Most of you, you're sitting there nodding your head thinking, you're absolutely right. And like Blake said earlier, and it's been said, just look around at everybody who's here. Look at the diverse group of individuals, families, friends, colleagues, people that come to Payson, Utah. This isn't even where Trent lives. To remember and just pay tribute to his unique life. Trent possessed traits which allowed him to be that guy. And by the way, that guy is the guy who most of us will say, how does he do it? Dang, why is he so beautiful? Charismatic, how can I be that guy? I just want to hang out with him and have some awesomeness rubbed off on me. He was that guy. Trent learned those key traits of how to be that guy at a very young age that enabled him to become the person that we all love, that we all respect, and we all care for. There's a book entitled The Art of Manliness, written by Brent McKay. And literally on its cover, it says, to teach all people the skills and manners to be a modern man. I've read this book, and I'm thinking about all this. There should be included in this book a chapter called and devoted to Trentisms, a practical breakdown of the art of being Trent and what everyone should incorporate in their lives to be a better connected person. To understand where it all began, you have to imagine living at the Quackenbush house when we were growing up at dinner time. There were 9 children, you all know this, 4 boys, 1 girl, 4 boys. Tiffany, lovingly in the middle, known as the Queen. Everyone says, poor Tiffany. Queen of the 4 youngers. Because of our age differences, they're the older boys and the younger boys, and the ruling queen of the younger boys separating the groups. Now, with that many people at the dinner table at one time for every single meal, the Ringling Brothers Circus was always in full swing. When Trent was about, I want to say 6, could have been a little bit younger, and I think it was a little younger, he began to practice a technique on our mother at dinner time. This trait of Trent's, which Todd and I coined as the chum. Trent would move his chair to either side of my mom so they would touch. Then Trent would chum, and he would do this. And he would get right under mom's elbow. And she responded to that by taking care of everything Trent needed at dinner. Trent chummed onto my mom every dinner. Not a dinner went by where Blake would spill his milk. Sorry, Blake, I had to throw that in. Chris would bring up the skeleton because my mom would say, sit up straight, and Chris would do this. But Trent would chum on our mom and get his dinner taken care of. He mastered the art of the chum at such a young age and so well, there was nothing anyone else could do. While the rest of us had to sit up straight, take a dish, pass it to the left, elbows off the table. No, really, sit up straight. Trent just chummed, and like Devin says, tilt his head and give you that smile because he knew there was nothing you could do. And he knew he had won at dinner table. He knew it. Later in life, Trent actually used the chum on all of us. If you were ever around Trent, you got chummed. We have all felt his chair pull up next to us. Trent would move in close, put his arms around us, and make us feel like there was nothing more important in life than getting chummed by him. As it's been spoken earlier, and I've even mentioned, Trent had a smile that could disarm a snake. He would grin that infectious grin, that devious grin, and you couldn't help but grin with him. It would all start by Trent looking you straight in the eye, just like Devin did. Those eyebrows are a little bit arched, dropping his head slightly, and that smile would start to come out. And he kept smiling and looking you straight in the eye. And you were smiling too. It was as if Trent was a snake charmer. Now, I hate to be the snake in situations like that, but man, when he started smiling, you just couldn't help yourself. You'd just smile with him. You'd be laughing with him. And before you know it, you've gone on a rabbit hole of laughing, mindless topics. I don't even know what we were talking about. But that darn smile of his won the heart of everyone, and we all know it. Trent has that laugh, and you all know the laugh. You all know the laugh. And he would begin a sentence. He would get one word out, and he would start to laugh. And most of the time, he couldn't get through the full sentence, but you were laughing with it, and you're like, that's right. Before and during high school, and along with his Taekwondo classes, Trent took formal dance and hip-hop class dances, and he learned how to hip-hop dance. He was very good at it. Trent developed kind of a swagger that he used his whole life. Now, I remember my college graduation, and this was held at BYU's Marriott Center. Now, my mom was very keen on, if there's a graduation, you need to be on it, or you need to be at it, right? So my parents both wanted all of my siblings there to watch me graduate from college. Not because I was special, but probably because it took me so long to earn a bachelor's degree that they just wanted me out. The ceremony had begun. The first two speakers had given their addresses to the graduates. Everyone was there but Trent. He showed up 30 minutes late. He walked down the aisle, down the Marriott Center stairs, cut in the row between people, and then started to climb over the chairs between people, smiling and laughing at all the people as he did it. You know, Tiffany Quackenbush, later remarked that, and here comes Trent, late as ever, just sauntering down through the people. And that was Trent. He had his saunter. His swagger was really much more of a saunter. It was just Trent's style, winning everyone over with a saunter, a quick smile, and a laugh. Trent even had his own code name. Like it's been said before, how many people you know have their own code name and get away with it to where people think, oh yeah, you do. That's a good thing. There's superheroes, there's mobsters, there's FBI agents, and then there's Pappy T. Okay? And I admit, Pappy T's pretty good for Trent. It's pretty good. Like it's been said, Trent loves people, loved everybody. I mean, he loved Japan, anime, manga, and he loved shoes. Trent's collection of shoes was incredible. But he loved people. Trent had the uncanny ability to make you feel like you were part of the group. He wasn't always the guy who was the loudest. He never was. He wasn't the one who would ever demand to tell you what you should do or shouldn't do or how to do it. He wasn't that guy. He would just invite you into his life with his sincerity and his easygoing demeanor. It was his calm, collected demeanor that diffused many a hostile situation with family, with clients, and that infectious smile and his saunter. Trent could turn the tide, that mood of the room, into a place where everyone wanted to be and everyone felt welcome. Trent loved people. He loved to be with other people, and he had a unique way to bond with all of his family, with his friends and his extended relatives. If you were new to the group, Trent would talk to you. He'd have a conversation. He'd smile. He'd laugh with you. And then you were part of the group. Everyone wanted to be Trent. Everyone wanted to be with Trent. And I think that's one reason he's going to be so sorely missed. We all love to be with Trent. Simple as that. We love Trent. So many of our nieces and nephews, my kids, look up to Trent, admire everything about him. He made so many special connections that just weren't surface connections. For example, and this has been said, he loved to play games with the family. You know, he'd play Magic the Gathering, board games, Cards Against Humanity. He did it all and loved every single minute. He'd watch my mom cheat at Catan and loved it. He loved to get on a boat. He loved to go to Lake Powell. He loved to go in Washington. He loved to be in Alaska. Getting on a boat, spending time with his people. That's where Trent loved to be. Being on that lake with his friends, being at those raves, those parties, he loved that. That was Trent. And you all know this, or you wouldn't be here today. If Trent had not touched your life directly or indirectly, you know he made you a better person. Trent loved his family and friends dearly. He loved to experience life, and he loved to do it with people. Trent wasn't the kind of hole up in the basement, let's let my hygiene and physique waste away, plan to build socialism, live in isolation. Nah, Trent was a doer. He got up in the morning with intentions and followed through with things. He decided he wanted to do something, and he just did it. He didn't just talk the talk, but he walked. Trent was very unapologetic in living his life the way he saw fit. If you didn't agree with him, he wouldn't get in your face about it. He wouldn't demand that you agree with him, but rather he just went on his world on his own terms. He just did it. With that boyish grin, that laugh, he lived the life he wanted to live. Trent saw the world on his own terms. He got tattoos in Korea. He visited Japan and Thailand, partied with his family and friends in Italy, visited historical locales in Europe. The list goes on and on and on. And on every one of those lists, Trent lived the life he wanted to live. You know, I've heard a lot of people say the following terms about someone that, you know, so-and-so's living their best life. Whenever you hear that, you know that's not true. But I think Trent did. He was one of those few people that he lived his best life, and he did it according to his own rules. Trent lived according to Trent, wholly and unapologetically, and we all loved him for it. You know, we're here today to celebrate a person who has touched us deeply. Someone who loved us, made friends with us, worked with us, played with us, lived with us, and cared for us. It's heartbreaking that we won't be able to continue to have more experiences with our brother, with our son, with our cousin, or our friend. It's heartbreaking to know that we won't see his infectious smile, that we're not going to get chummed, that we're not going to easily laugh or see that saunter down an aisle. I'm devastated by his passing, and I know you are too. We're all hurting in the most profound ways. There's a hole in our hearts that's not going to mend easily. There's a void in our lives where a light used to shine. There's an embrace that's not going to be greeted or returned. We all grieve. We all want him here because we miss who he is. And we miss him. May I suggest that we lean on each other now and be the Trent for those around of us who are still living. Invite people into your group. Smile an infectious smile. Laugh easily with others. Charm and chum your way into the hearts of everyone around you and show love to those around you to make them know how important they are to you. And above all else, go out, do something that needs to be done. Live like Trent, unapologetically and with purpose. And in my mind, that's the way we can celebrate Trent's life. Rest easy, Pappy T. We love you.
Good afternoon. My sweet daughter-in-law suggested that I print out my talk. I said, no, I'll be all right. I can read it off of my phone, and I've realized I'm gravely mistaken. It might be a little rough. First, on behalf of our family, I want to express my gratitude and our gratitude to the many people who have reached out to us, shared their condolences, cheered us up in our time of sadness. In different ways, our hearts are all broken with the passing of Trent. We mourn the loss of our brother, our friend, a son, a cousin. But today I'm here to proclaim that all is not lost. There is hope because there is a plan. I want to tell you that there's a loving Father in heaven, a God up above us. And part of the plan was we were sent here to this earth to learn and to grow, to make choices, and to live. It is with that understanding that we will face in this life a spectrum of experiences. There will be times of sadness and sorrow, pain, and even death. But there will also be times of great joy, seasons of love and friendship, memories of relationships and happiness. And the purpose of all of this is the intent that we will choose and be responsible for the path that we choose. And in the end, this will give us experience, and it will be for our good. A loving Father in heaven knew that we wouldn't always make the right choices. We'd be prone to make mistakes. We'd stumble and fall down, say and do things that would injure and hurt one another. But in God's divine omniscience, his mercy and love, he sent to us his Son, Jesus Christ, to help us, to pick us up when we fall down or when we don't live up to our full potential. He helps us to forgive others when we have been wronged and injured. He helps us repent and change when we make mistakes that offend our neighbor, a loved one, or God. And most of all, he helps us get back on the path that is going to lead us back home. A week ago, as Howard called the family to inform us of Trent's passing, and our family began to gather in Austin to try to support our mom, support each other, and try to help in any way we could. I had a few hours before my flight. And I had some time to reflect, to ponder, and to pray. And now I can't see. And in those quiet moments, I had the unmistakable impression that my baby brother was safe. He was well. And as my sweet mother noted, Trent was now among loving family members who had passed on previously. And I knew he was happy, and happier than he'd been in a very long time. One day we will all stand before the Savior and give an account of the choices we've made here in mortality. It is my humble belief that we'll be judged by a loving Savior who knows and understands the whole picture of our life. He is the only one who truly knows our heartaches, our upbringing, our genetics, our struggles, our weaknesses, and maybe most importantly, the intent of our hearts. Trent had a good heart, and he was kind. Just as Devin said, everybody's paper had kindness on it, I'm sure. But the Savior is, in fact, the one who knows the whole entire story of each of our lives. Because he knows the whole story, I believe in the end, this is why it allows him to be merciful to us, kind and just. And I have hope that he will be more merciful and more kind than we all deserve. But it is for this very reason that we are asked not to judge, but instead only to love. We are asked to pick each other up when we've fallen down, like Kurt said. We are asked to mourn with those that mourn and bear one another's burdens. And as we do this, we will find peace in our souls, mercy in our own lives, and hope for a brighter day and a world to come. There's a favorite hymn of mine that's taken from Psalm 23 in the Old Testament, and it was written in the early 1700s. I'd like to share a portion of that that's close to my heart today, and I'll close with this. It says, "My shepherd will supply my need. Jehovah is his name. In pastures fresh, he makes me feed beside the living stream. His hand in sight of all my foes does still my table spread. My cup with blessings overflows. His oil anoints my head. And when through the shades of death I walk, may his house be mine abode. May I return, no more a stranger, nor a guest, but as a child coming home. I believe, I know, that Trent has returned back to the watchful care of a loving Father in heaven who knows him and loves him. And for this knowledge, I am grateful. And I say that in the name of Jesus Christ. Amen."
We'll conclude this memorial for Trent by having a musical number from our dear cousin David Quackenbush. Following David, Todd Quackenbush, a brother, will give us our closing prayer. After the closing prayer, we invite those that would like to continue to visit to pass to the cultural hall. We'll try to maintain the reverence here in the chapel. We're grateful for each of you and for your attendance. David.
Song's called River Shoes.
Take me high, take me low, to the places I would go. Oh, my way, oh, my reason, oh, washing away, with the season. So I won't lay, I won't lie down. I'll get on my feet, you can't hold me. I won't even frown, yeah, I won't even frown. Take me river shoe, oh, take me there. Got my river shoes, I got my teeth out right there. Take me river shoe, take me long, I would promise you this heart's true. I'll be waiting until the sun rises. Take me take me low, low, to the places I would go. I would go. Our Father in heaven, you are sovereign, Lord. You are a holy and wonderful God. And we praise you in this storm. We join our voices with the angels in heaven saying, Holy, holy is your name. Holy, holy is the Lord God Almighty, and your name stands above them all. As we remember, mourn, and celebrate the amazing life of our son, brother and friend Trent, our hearts are heavy. Lord, but we are blessed and thankful for each day that we had with Trent. We know that we'll be reunited with him again because Jesus conquered death.
Cover us in the shadow of your wings, Father. You draw near to the brokenhearted. Even your Son, Jesus, cried at the tomb of his friend Lazarus, knowing the heartache of his friends, while even knowing the peace that awaits on the other side. You do give beauty for ashes. We praise you because of your faithfulness, and that your grace is new for each of us each morning. We ask that you pour out an extra measure of your Holy Spirit to be with us this day and in our ongoing sorrow. And we pray this in Jesus' holy name. Amen.
This concludes our service for Trent today, and thank you all for being here. Yeah. I have your back after sitting on this. I need to